Hey, welcome to the How to Podcast series. David is here with you, and I have a co-host guest, Tiffany Mason, joins us on this episode to talk about her business that she does as far as podcast management, and she comes with a ton of experience and great ideas, and I know between the two of us, we were both taking notes as we went through this, so we'll put a summary of what we've talked about in the show notes as well, and links to Tiffany so you can go check out all of the great services that she offers. And I'd encourage you to go check them out and support her and her business. Thank you, Tiffany, for being part of the podcast. We jump into stuff like how do we repurpose our content? We talk about audiograms. We talk about YouTube and static image posts. Yes, no. What do you think? We talk about, so much transcriptions. We talk about launching your podcast, active listening. And one thing that I love about Tiffany is she shares 3 things that she focuses on with her clients. She focuses on overwhelm, relinquishing your control of your podcast, and growth. Those are the 3 key things that she focuses on with her clients. And I learned, again, so much from Tiffany, and I'm looking forward to having her back again. So we're going to talk about a bunch of different things today. And the whole idea of this is to help you as a podcaster. So if you have a chance and you're sitting there having a coffee and there's a piece of paper and a pen close by, awesome. Grab it and take some notes as we go. Otherwise, if you're on the treadmill or driving and both hands on the wheels, please, you can always get the show notes and kind of do a research after the fact. Enjoy the podcast. Thank you for being here. How to Podcast series. Love having co-hosts come on and share their side of the podcast journey. So you're not just listening to me every day, right? I know. Here we go. Tiffany Mason on the How to Podcast series. You, me, Tiffany. Let's start this conversation right now. Here we go.
Yes, obviously, Alberta. That's all part of the pitch.
Oh, I can't believe I'm going to be on a podcast, whatever that is.
Okay.
Okay, well, this is the How to Podcast series. I have a guest with me. Tiffany Mason is here. Tiffany is from virtuallyuva.com. Tiffany is a podcast manager, a podcaster, has a Facebook group for podcasters. She's from beautiful Florida, and she's here with us today. Tiffany, welcome to my co-host. Nice to have you here. How are things?
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. Things are good. Normally we are the sunshine state here in Florida, and today we are the overcast state. So not much sunshine, but it is really humid and it's pretty warm. I mean, it's almost 80 degrees. So, I am complaining. That is me complaining, because we like our sun. It seems like the humidity is a little bit easier to handle, when you've got the sun. So anyways, yeah. So that's
Nice.
how we're doing here.
And everybody is okay. You guys had a storm recently. Everything's okay in your part of the world?
In my part of the world, yes. My son lives in Orlando, which is to our south, and he had quite a bit of flooding in his apartment building. And I met with my friend today, whose friend is visiting from in town or from out of town, in the Tampa area, actually a little bit further south. And they do not have school and they cannot get into their buildings yet. So it's still pretty bad where landfall was. But in my neck of the woods, thankfully, I kind of feel guilty saying it, but life is, going on as normal. So not too much damage here, thankfully.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'm glad you guys are safe. That's pretty harrowing. It was a pretty big storm. So we were watching up here in Canada going, oh my gosh, like we have snow. That's the biggest thing we have to worry about. But yeah, that was pretty scary. So I'm glad you guys are fine. The How to Podcast series, the idea was that we would have co-hosts come on and let's kind of nerd out about podcasting and kind of share back and forth about what's working for us, and then kind of theme it out to help our listener today, who I'm envisioning is a future podcaster or somebody actively podcasting. And we'll kind of build a little conversation around to support them. Kind of go back and forth. You had some ideas about what we could talk about today. So, hey, let's jump in and let's kind of have this conversation. I'm interested to hear where this goes.
Okay. Well, as a podcast manager, a lot of my clients say to me, like, I want to grow my podcast, which obviously we all want to grow our podcast. And everybody's talking about best practices. And one of best practices that we all know is to be on other podcasts, but also to repurpose what you currently have. You already took the time to plot out your episode and think about the questions you wanted to ask your guest if you had a guest, or, materials you wanted to cite in that episode. So I think it's important to take all that hard work and repurpose it. Just take a whole bunch of bite-sized pieces out of it and throw it out on social media. And the other problem is with social media, it's not our friend, right? So we have to take these bite-sized pieces, and so we can keep talking about our podcast, right? Like you can say like, oh, I have a new episode, but then what do you do after that? So that's where people were kind of stuck. And so I really help and encourage people on repurposing. Do you do any repurposing right now, Dave?
Yes. What I like to do is an episode that's been out for, I don't know, 6 to 8 months. It's kind of waned a little bit, and its traction's kind of gone. You can see the listenership kind of fall back. What I do is I like to tag my guest again and just share it again, especially if it's a themed thing. So if there's something happening in the news or something's happening at the time of the year, I bring back their podcast again, and I maybe do a new little promo for it, or a little something on Instagram or Facebook, and I tag them in it, and they get this like little hit, like, oh wow. Like what I like to tell my guests is, I'm going to be part of your promotion team, and you're not going to hear from me just once when your podcast is released, but I'm going to be hanging around, and I'm going to keep coming back and kind of dinging you here and there, and just kind of promoting. Again, your audience on social media is not going to see your first and only post. So why not come back here and there and just revitalize some of your past content? It's evergreen, so we might as well enjoy it. So that's one thing I like to do, is just kind of these little touches here and there, and just kind of give a little boost. That's what I like.
I like what you said about, if it's something relevant that's going on, currently, that's a great reason to retag them. The other thing that I've done in regards to this is my seasons wrap up in, what's the month before August? In July. Yeah. And then in August, the month of August, I will revisit all the episodes from the season and say, hey, did you guys hear this one? Because I interview people about music, which is also evergreen, and that doesn't really necessarily go with any current events. But it's a great time for me to, same thing, where like, okay, we've gone through the year, we've listened to all the other episodes. Now I want to revisit some of those and retag these people to remind them, and also to respark that connection that I had with them in the first place. So I like it for that reason as well. I think that's great.
Yeah, and if an artist has a new release, a new album, a new show in the area, it's a great way, or if they're in the news for anything, you can just be like, hey, we had them on the podcast back at episode 5. They were here, and now they're in the news. So it's kind of nice to be able to do that.
Well, and it's a great time to have them on again.
Yes. Get some updates, right? And there's always new songs.
Yes.
There's always a new tour. So that's a great way to do that. I love that.
Yep.
So tell me more about your podcast. I'm curious. I'm really, really curious.
Yeah, I interview people about songs that they love and why they love them. So the podcast is called Memories with a Beat. And it was kind of came up with that idea that, like, when you have a smell, and you're instantly somewhere else. You're instantly in your childhood home with your grandma, and you're baking cookies or whatever the situation is, right? Oddly enough, for me, my favorite smell brings me back to my dank basement. It was very musty, but we just had so many great memories. There were some stairs there, and at one point my dad had gotten crazy and ripped all these stairs out. And so it was just this dirt path, and so we'd run really fast down it and really fast up it to get to the upstairs. And so just great memories like that. But I think that a lot of people have that same thing with a song. You're in the car, you're driving, that song comes on. I have one, Phil Collins, I can feel it coming in the air at night. I don't know what the actual name of the song is, but yes.
Yep. There you go.
Yes. And I had a boyfriend and he had a Camaro, and we used to like super late at night drive down this one street that was really busy during the day, but just dead at like 11 o'clock at night. And it was so cool because that Camaro would sit so low to the ground and all the windows were tinted and you were kind of in your own little place. And it was, that eerie, I can feel it
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
coming in the, and it was just so cool just to drive down that street and just think about that. So a lot of people have that same thing. And so I appreciate that about them. And what they share with me. One lady talking about, unfortunately, being a victim of a rape and a boat accident, and how these songs, help them cope. I had a music therapist on the show, and she was talking about songs that she used. I had a weight loss coach that came on, and she talked about a playlist, four songs long, and how the first one does this for you and the next songs do this for you, and they actually help with weight loss. But it's so true that, music shifts our mentality so much. And so it's just interesting to see and hear how people have used these different songs and how they relate in different times of their life.
It's amazing. So what other ways are you doing any kind of repurposing? How do you kind of address that for your library?
My favorite thing to do, well, I have two different things. You saying library. Each song that I interview my guest about, I make a playlist on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube.
Nice.
So I'm trying to catch people where they already are. If you're already going to Apple Music to consume music, I hope you come across my playlist. If you're already going to Spotify to find music, I hope you're coming across my playlist. And then videos, a lot of times when I'm interviewing somebody, they'll speak about the actual video for the music. And so I like to pull the official video, and then people can go and see it. Like we were talking about Madonna, Just Like a Prayer, and how unique that video is. And so if anybody hadn't seen it, I said, hey guys, go check out the video playlist and go watch the video for this one, so that's one way. Another way is that I really love to use audiograms. Do you use audiograms right now, Dave?
Yeah, I've been trying those. I'm getting some hit and miss as far as like my viewership on those. I don't know how to make them better. What are some tips from your side? What do you think?
Well, I think personally, I don't actually make episodic artwork, but I make artwork for the audiogram, and I make it more jazzed up. So it's more eye-catching, right? Then I've noticed on some other people's audiograms, and I would personally like to learn how to do this. They're not using Headliner. They're using, I think Canva is one of them. And there's one other platform where people are making the audiograms. And so in there, they're having different ways to show the waveform. So, in Headliner, it's mostly a basic audio wave, where in the other ones, they have like maybe just a little bubble in the upper right-hand corner, or, it's more creative. And so I've been trying to get a little bit more creative with where I place the audio or the audio form. I try to place it maybe, by the person's mouth. So it almost looks like, the words are coming out of their mouth, or something kind of clever in that respect. Also making them bright colors. And I always try to pick like a spot where the guest said something really profound, or where they were having such great banter back and forth. Something that hopefully I'm hooking my audience and they're going, wait a minute, that sounds like a great episode. I want to go listen to the full thing, because I also make audiograms for my clients. So I'm trying, I want to make sure that I'm getting them the most exposure possible when creating the audiograms for them. But a great hack, and I don't know if you've done this, have you used audiograms to create reels?
I have. Yes, I'm working on that. That's another great thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's amazing to harness that. And again, anytime Instagram sets up a new thing, anybody that jumps on and starts using it, they like to promote that, because you're using their new thing. So that's a great tip. Yeah, for sure.
Right. And it's competing with TikTok. So I don't know if you know this too. If you take a TikTok and you place it on Instagram, they won't give it nearly as much play if it's got the TikTok watermark on it. Right. So if you take that off and turn it into a reel, or take it from your audiogram and turn that into a reel. So I don't know if you have any examples. My example is that if I post something regular on my feed, I get maybe 25 to 45 views, right? If I create a reel, sometimes I get up to 5,000 views.
Wow.
So the difference between just a post and turning it into a reel is monumental.
That's amazing. I love that. Okay, the other thing I like to do is when I do my video interviews,
Yeah.
normally what I do is when I do an interview, I have 6 podcasts. So one of my podcasts is for authors, and I have a ceiling as far as how much I can upload every month. And I've blown right past that.
Okay,
so I'm at episode 70 on my audio hosting site.
Okay.
But I have 107 episodes recorded. So when I have a guest on and they're like, that was a great interview, when can I get a copy? I'm like, how is 4 months from now? Right? Because then they're like, look at me like, what are you talking about? But I have this backlog where I can only upload. Right now I'm doing 12 hours a month. I'm almost doing a podcast every day, trying to get these out because they're done. Right?
That's crazy.
It's a great problem to have, but it's still a problem. So what I do is I do a still image on YouTube with the track behind it. I know a lot of people don't like that, but my rationale behind that is I treat YouTube as a Google Drive, and that's a backup to my MP3. So if my computer decides to stop working today, I can still access all my files. They're hosted there for free. There's no limit. I can upload as much as I want.
Yep.
And people can still watch and view and listen. So I listen.
Well, and I've also heard that many people are just turning on, they're already on YouTube, they're looking at videos, whatever, and then they come across the podcast and it's got that static image and they're like, okay, I'm going to play this in the background while I get some work done or while I do whatever, because there's no video to watch. So I agree with you that that's a great avenue for finding people where they are and using it like a backup drive. I think that's absolutely genius that you did that. I did it by accident,
it's free.
But right. Yes.
And then so what I do then is I do release everything on audio when I'm allowed to. And then I do the video version. Yeah. But when I do the video version, if we have a topic, so for example, I had a jet fighter pilot on and he was talking about his new book and he trains fighter pilots. So like pretty cool, right? Wow. That's a pretty amazing conversation. So at the end of his interview, after we say goodbye, and I do my credits and stuff at the end of my video that I'm going to upload to YouTube, I do like a video kind of thing that kind of has his information, my guest information, and then a video of a jet flying through the sky, and this kind of like Top Gun music in behind it, all done on Canva for free. Yeah. And then what I do is I take that little clip and I just resize it to Instagram into a cube shape, post it on Instagram, and you get video with a link to the person. I tag them. And it's this really cool little 10, 15 second little clip that my guest gets to share. It's not them talking. It's just, here's the link, here's the website, here's the episode number. And what I tell my listeners is, hey, if you want to jump the line and get ahead of everyone else, if you want today's episode that I just recorded today, go to YouTube. It's there. Otherwise, you can wait like everyone else and you'll hear it in February, or you can get it now. And what I'm seeing is this big uptick because people are jumping over there going, I want more. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for that, is getting ahead of my listeners and giving them advance access.
Does YouTube have a subscription where if podcasters wanted to monetize, they could say, hop over to my YouTube subscription channel, blah, 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 blah? Or do you have Patreon on there?
I have Patreon that I promote mostly right now through my Instagram and through my website. But yeah, that would be a good spot to be able to plug that in there as well, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love this idea of resizing in Canva. That's genius.
Just one click. So like I created it as a Facebook size post. And then that's perfect for YouTube, 16 by 9 or whatever that is. And then there's one click button and it just automatically takes everything you've done and just makes it smaller. You have to move a little bit here and there and you're done. It's really easy.
Yeah. Perfect. That's genius. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that I do for repurposing is those reels that I've posted. I'll wait maybe a day or two. Lots of times I post a reel and then a fact or a quote from the episode. And then a couple days later, I'll upload both into my stories. And what I like about stories is you can put that link.
Yep.
I don't know if you use that link sticker. So that if somebody wants to listen to the episode, they can just click on it right there and they're off and running and listening to my episode.
One thing I'm thinking about doing is bringing a little bit of the clip, maybe from my guests talking. I don't need to be in the clip, but just them talking. And maybe instead of just doing, maybe to kind of add to doing, the post, is have a little clip of them actually saying it on camera and saying the quote that really matters, because then people get to see them as well, and make that just a small little 20-second, 15-second little clip, because then it's a video side, right?
Right.
And, I know Instagram loves video, so that's one thing that might also help a little bit. So I'm toying with that right now and just how that's going to look and work.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great idea. And then maybe even on that post, you can put the quote so that, they listen to it and then they go back. I don't know about you, but lots of times I listen to them maybe 3 or 4 times because I'm like, okay, where did everything fit in together?
Yeah.
Or I missed part of it or whatever, And so then when they're going back, they're going, oh, okay, this is the quote he wants me to hear. Now I hear this, guest saying it with passion or excitement or whatever, So that's pretty cool. I like that idea a lot.
And then the last thing I do as well with that little short video clip, like the airplane, for example, flying, is I post that to YouTube as like a 15, 20-second clip. And I tag the actual interview.
As a short?
I tag the interview in the short. So if you see the video, you're like, that looks cool. You click the link, you go right to the episode right from there as well. So it's kind of like, well, there's just a little taste of the podcast. Now I'm curious. And they look really good on screen.
Yeah. I upload all my audiograms to YouTube as well, and they automatically go into shorts.
Yeah.
Those shorts I could be tagging. Look at this.
See?
Wow, I love that.
I love this. This is
That's a great idea because I'm already doing it. So I might as well get a better bang out of my buck.
Yeah. So you can, with their shorts,
bigger
I don't
bang.
think you can do an end screen. It has to be a certain length of an upload, but you can do all the little tags that you can pick anywhere in there. I usually drop them in the middle,
Yeah.
and then people can just click on them. They just pop up on the screen, and off you go.
Oh, I'm going to look into that for sure.
And then the other thing, you can
That's
reverse
genius.
it, and on your full length, where you do have an end screen, then you can tag the short and send people to the next short, which will send them to the next episode. So, especially if the episodes go together. So, like I had 2 different guests on talking about traumatic brain injury. So, if you like this video and you got something out of it, you're definitely going to like this one. So, I tag that video to this video and back like a circle. So, no matter which one you come to, you're going to get the other one. And it's kind of another way to keep people in the topic as well. That suggested video that pops up at the end.
I love that. So really, we could do that in any post and put a link. So like, because the functionality is different, but if there are 2 episodes similar, like all my episodes that are songwriters, I could say, hey, if you like this songwriter, check out my next 3 episodes where these people were songwriters as well.
Perfect.
Or musicians. I have a lot of, I've had a couple of guys who play instruments and that's kind of where their expertise is. But of course they love music. So we discuss a song there. So that is great. That is a great idea. I love that, Dave.
See, that's what this is about. This is exactly, and I hope that people listening are like, I've got to take notes. I got to take notes. We'll put them in the show notes. We'll have all
get
this
your
stuff
paper
for you.
out.
And the nice thing too that I love, one extra bonus, we'll give this as a bonus thing for everyone listening, is when you post your interviews to YouTube, they do a free transcription service for you.
Yes.
And it's pretty good, I got to say, because they put a lot of money and time into this. So I let them do their magic. I pull it down. I do some editing. And now I have a full transcript. Whether or not you want
I do
that,
too.
Some people are like, I'm not really a transcript person. Some people are. I love it for people who can't listen to the episode. For whatever reason, they can read.
There's been a little buzz about having the podcast be ADA compliant. And so someone who maybe is deaf, that they can read the episode. But the other benefit that this is a great segue into what I was going to say about repurposing, because I know we've talked about a lot of ways, but a lot of the benefits are that it improves your SEO. because you have that one topic
Yes.
and you keep saying the words about that topic. Now you've said them in YouTube, you've said them in Instagram, you've said them on Facebook, you've said them on your website, and the link has been clicked on multiple times for different reasons, in the different places that you posted it. And your SEO will keep rising you closer and closer to the top for any organic search. So I think that is a huge bonus because you want people to find you and your show, right? So I think that is one of the biggest benefits to repurposing any of the content that you have, as well as when you repurpose your content. Lots of times, like you have, maybe you're trying to drive traffic for a business and you want to say like, okay, I'm a chiropractor, but people get tired of hearing that maybe. So what you can say instead is, I have this episode and I talked to this guest about adjusting their back. I have this other episode and I talked to this guest about, XYZ topic, but it's all letting you still talk about your business, but instead you're talking about the podcast, which doesn't, it's like a tricky way to keep talking about your business multiple times without sounding like a broken record. So they go in and they say, I talked to this other chiropractor and he and I talked about best practices. I talked to an administrator of a chiropractic office and we talked about systems that you would want in place for your chiropractic business. Now I have somebody on and we're talking about, their last adjustment and the difference it made in their health. So they're getting to post multiple times on social media, but they don't have to sound like a broken record. It doesn't have to be all the same content. It's giving them something different to talk about. And as well as I do, you can pull like 20 plus pieces of content from any episode. So the fact that would give them a lot of items or a lot of content to post without sounding like, I have a new episode, I'm a chiropractor. I have a new episode, I'm a chiropractor. It gives more legitimate conversation.
And more value for your listener and the people interacting with you. We have a small business, my wife and I. People listen to our podcast, they come in the door. I've never met them. My wife's never met them, but they feel like they know us because they've heard our voice. We've been in their ears. They've listened. They've heard the stories behind the stories, and they feel like they're part of the group, right? Yeah. And they come in like, wow, hey, it's great to see you guys. And we're like trying to think, like, do we know these people? Like, what's their names? What are their names? But then they tell us, listen to your podcast and I love this. I love this. I love this. And there's just that, they feel like they already know us and they trust us. And that whole know, like, and trust thing is already established. So anyone with a business, if you're a plumber to a business owner to a coach, if you have a podcast agency, having a podcast definitely opens the door and creates those really nice warm leads for you. I love and encourage anyone, because I love podcasting. I love just to look at podcasting as a way to grow your business.
Well, yeah, because then they come to you like a qualified lead.
Yeah.
They already know they're interested in you. There's not much selling to really do. Yeah, you're just talking to them about the stuff that they already listened to an episode about. Okay,
so one thing I've heard somebody say, I don't know if you've ever heard this before, was just the idea about launching your podcast. And how I want to have a big launch. Okay, Tiffany, like I'm ready. I want to have my date when I'm going to launch my podcast. And if I do a really good launch, I'll have a great podcast. And somebody said to me, Dave, if you believe that, then a big wedding means you're going to be successful in marriage. And
I love that.
I'm like, really? Yes. And it's kind of interesting that if we put all of our effort at the launch, but we don't focus on the relationship, the marriage, the relationship of the podcast host and listener, I think that the big launch maybe might not serve you quite as well. So I love the idea of thinking about your content long-term, thinking about your audience long-term, and building that up. Yeah. If you have somebody new coming to you to launch a podcast, what are some of the kind of the things that you focus in on to help them launch well?
Well, I always tell them that they should be, either, I think that there's two strategies. You either tease your audience, like something big is coming, or you simply say for 2 weeks, like, hey guys, I've been working on this podcast. I'm so excited. It's coming out, in 2 weeks, and now it's coming out in 10 days. Now it's coming out in 5 days. They're kind of giving a teaser and letting people know that it's about ready to happen. I think it's best practice to start with at least 3 episodes. 3 to 5, I feel like is good.
Yeah.
I feel like we live in such a binge culture. You listen to one, if you like it, you want to go to the next one and the next one, And then at some point you do want to leave them wanting more though, so that they're excited about the next
Yeah.
episode. And then obviously just great audio. I mean, sound is king. Make sure you're not all over the place. Drink some water. You don't want to have all those mouth sounds while you're recording, or figure out a way to zap them out. And great intro, outro. I mean, be compelling, be interesting, use content that people want to hear. I think some people, I don't know if you've heard like I'm always listening to podcasts, they follow me and then I'm like, oh, I wonder what their podcast is about. And so I go check it out. And some of them are so awful. These people talking over each other, talking about irrelevant topics. I'm like, I just don't know where the audience is for this podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they want to monetize. Hey, it's me in my basement and I need to make money now. I've got 5 episodes. Where's somebody? I want to get a mattress sponsor or something. Yeah. No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. It's too much. Yeah. Well, and there is something called podcast fade, which I'm sure you're aware of, where they, they have these 7 burning topics. I mean, average. And then after that, they're like, I don't know what else to talk about. And so that's one of the things I talk about with them. Like, we got to the launch, but make sure you realize that there's episodes that have to come after. It's always funny when I say, okay, you're launched, you're public, you're published, you're out there. And then I'm like, and I need the next episode by Friday. And they're like, but I just did all that work. Yeah, we got it. Now's where it gets perpetual and we're going to keep going. And I'm going to need that next episode.
What have you learned about yourself as a podcaster? What kind of skills did you uncover that you didn't really had tapped into previous to being a podcaster? How has it made you different?
Well, I'm definitely really up to date on social media best practices. I'm in a couple of networking groups and a couple of the ladies in there share tips and all that kind of stuff from time to time. And then we have like this chat group and they share stuff in there. But it really helps me to know how to utilize it to my best, for my best benefit, which then of course I can use with my clients. So I never had that before. One thing that I have also learned from being a podcast manager and editing their episodes, I learned so much. So I have to go through and take out the imperfections. But while I'm listening, I mean, I have learned about things in the woo-woo world where I was like, okay. And then like the more I listened to it, I was like, okay, I think that actually makes sense. I've listened to one, or I edited one where this lady was in the Navy and she was trying to help people just be mentally strong and physically strong. As far as like, the thing I thought that was most profound is when they take off on the ship, they have a variety of food. And as they get further and further into the deployment, they have carbs, right? They're left with like pasta and potatoes, things that last for a while that are shelf stable. And how do you eat and plan and stay healthy in that environment? As well as you're stuck on that ship, right, for your whole deployment. Yeah. So how do you mentally stay strong? You're not getting out to see your family. You're not going out in nature. You're on the boat. So how do you stay mentally sound? And then I have a lady right now that does, she has a meditation VR headset. And it's been interesting to learn the differences of meditation, like guided or regular, or not regular, but like where you just you're just thinking of nothing. That's really the form of meditation. But you can also do these guided meditations. But what she found is some people literally cannot visualize stuff. So when you put this VR headset on, if your brain thinks you've been there, then it buys into that theory more. And she shared a really interesting study where these people for, I think, 2 months, they didn't go to the gym, but they just visualized themselves going to the gym with this VR headset. Do you know they gained 13% muscle? They literally didn't do anything else. So when your brain thinks that you've been there, it is more likely to buy into it. Like, okay, yes, we go to the gym every day. Okay, yes, we go to the gym every day. And then when you take the VR headset off, maybe you really go to the gym, So it's just changing habits and stuff. But yeah, it's been incredible, the things that I have learned through being a podcast editor. And then just the zen when you're editing. I just love
Yeah.
that. I love like you put the headphones on, nobody can bother you. You're like sucked in, and this is super dorky, but I love knowing all the little quick keys, So I'm like Command
Yeah.
T, Command I, Command this, Command X, Command S, whatever. And I'm like flying through the episode. And so I don't know, it's just been a very awesome skill set to learn. I'm helping people to promote their businesses and they feel so good. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have a podcast and it's all because of you. It's really because of them, which of course I help them to
Yeah.
understand and see that. But it is a good feeling to know that, I'm in their back pocket if they're like, wait, what do I do here? Or how does this go? Or whatever.
Yeah.
So I've just really delved into the podcast space overall. Networking as far as how to take care of the podcast, social media, finding clients. And then I just love my clients so much. So, we end up being friends on Facebook and we're following each other and like, how was that trip last week? So it's just been
Nice.
cool. And I'm just social anyways, so it's been very fulfilling. Very fulfilling. How about you? What do you think that you've gained for it? Because you have 6
6.
podcasts.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But yeah, so one thing I've really learned was active listening in the sense that to
Okay,
not
yeah.
talk over somebody, because in editing, that was just a nightmare. Because I'm doing all my, oh, yeah, me too. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And when I get to my file, I'm like, why am I talking so much? Right? So I'm like, if I can let my guests speak and I can just be quiet, it's so much easier for me later. So for me, I'm learning how to be a better listener, to be more engaged. I'm actually quite an introvert, really. If you put me in a large room, I'm the guy in the corner waiting to go home. So this is a really cool way for me to interact with people. And I do a podcast, one of my podcasts, well, 2 of them with my wife. And my wife, Jennifer, she has a full-time job and she just was promoted recently to a manager in her job. And she now has to do
Yeah.
presentations in front of like 30, 40 people. And she's quiet, like she's super
Mm-hmm.
quiet, very confident. But now her boss brought her in for her review and they said, why are you so different? Like when you first started, you were so quiet and now you're standing up in front of a group of people and you're just projecting and you're confident. She's like, oh, well, I have a podcast and I'm in 70 countries.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're on a
Yep.
podcast? Right? And she's like, oh, yeah. So it just gives her another tool in her tool chest that she can use in her job,
Yeah.
which makes her better and more employable and more promotable within her company by just having a podcast
Yeah.
and the things you learn. So
Yeah.
there's so much to learn. So if somebody's listening and they haven't started yet, I'm hoping they're hearing some of this and go, yeah, I need that. I need that in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It is a nightmare when someone talks over each other. I think we differ a little bit. I do like it a little bit when people are like, oh yeah. I have my one podcaster and she always kind of does this little, mm. And I like that. So I make sure I try to, but sometimes I will move it to a place where like the person that she's speaking with took a breath or
Yeah.
something so you can more audibly hear it. But yeah, no, I agree with that. I think the other thing is transition, right? Because you can't always say, oh, I like that. That's great, right? You have to like come up with better segues, I think, So
Yeah.
I think that's another thing that I've picked up, other ways to, re-enter the conversation.
Yeah. And when I'm doing my interviews, I really don't like hijacking the interview with my story. I'm not the guest. I'm the host. So I would
Right.
love to shine the light on my guests. They're giving their time to me. They're not coming to listen to me. They're, if my story helps
Right.
develop their story, great. But really, they don't need to hear about me in high school. That doesn't really add much to their story. So I love to kind of, and
Yeah.
if I do use it, I just cut it out. Because if it doesn't feed the end
Yes.
process and it doesn't hurt the conversation, I can just remove it and keep going. So I kind of play back and forth with that. So editing is my friend. I love editing.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. I asked my husband one time, I was like, am I talking about myself too much? I said, I feel like I am. And he goes, sometimes you do. And I was like, yeah. So I do the same thing. I think like I let the conversation go however it's going to go, but then I cut a lot of my stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah.
My guest recently said, oh my gosh, I just talked the whole time about me. I said that was the point of the interview. I was interviewing to talk about you.
Perfect. Okay, so have we covered all the repurposing stuff that you wanted to talk about? Was there anything else we missed?
Well, there was one thing that I thought about, and I don't know if it's necessarily repurposing, but I do focus on always having my clients create their web on the web. And so the final thing I would share with your audience is have your show notes. I do a little bit of show note in Apple Music or, in my podcast host. I do a short description. Then I have a link that says full show notes. When they click on that, it takes them to my blog. My blog has show notes. It has good, better, best equipment that they could look at for their podcast. And it has, I do this silly thing called Deep Thoughts by Tiffany Mason. There used to be this segment on Saturday Night Live, Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy.
I love that. Yes, yes.
And then there's one more. I can't think of what it is right now. One more category. Anyhow, and so I do that so that it gets them closer to my website because my blog is connected to my website. So if they go, and it always says this episode edited by or produced by Virtually You. And so if they want more information about me, they can click on that and then it takes them to the website. But the website, it's like what you were saying with tagging on YouTube, the shorts and the videos. It's the same thing. The podcast will take them to the blog, which will take them to the website, which can take them back to the podcast. It's that perpetual circle again, where I'm keeping them in my sphere. So they're spending more time with me and learning more about me and my services and the podcast and all that it has to offer. So it's repurposing in a sense, but more it's linking, it's creating that web on the web for, any podcaster to get maximum exposure and get them over to your website.
Get them off the rented land of social media as well.
Uh-huh.
Right.
I like that. Rented land of social media. I like that. I'm writing that down.
So my wife and I did a podcast episode about what if Facebook and Instagram went down 2 weeks before it did. And we're like, oh my gosh, did we do that? Was that us? Did we make that happen? But it actually did happen. And I'm like, wow, that was pretty interesting. So yeah, it can happen, right? So you build your whole world around social media, and then one day somebody pushes the wrong button, you can't talk to your audience. So bring them into your world, bring them into the land that you own, and build that community. I love it.
Yeah, and it's also another way that they could build their email list if they wanted to, So, because I know that's another piece of, like you say, getting off the rented land, is to build that email list so that you can tell them, hey, there's a new episode, or hey, did you know this, that, or the other, giving them tips and tricks like we're doing today. So I think that's important.
Okay, so how do people work with you? What do they do? How do they find you? Do all the things. You know the spiel. What do we do?
Okay. Social media is all at Virtually You Podcast VA for virtual amplification. And then the website is www.virtuallyuva.com. And it has all the information on there, and you can check out services, you can check out the podcast, you can check out the blog. It's all there for you.
And what does it feel like to work with you? And give me a sense of what that feels like.
Well, that's a great question. I'm in this networking group, and they say, pick 3 words that you use for your client journey. And I say overwhelm, relinquish, growth. So they're in their podcast or they're getting ready to start it, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. The checklist seems like overwhelming. They can't even stand it. Where are they going to start? And then they come to me. They relinquish control, and I organize it all in a neat little box for them on Trello, and they can see what I'm doing, what's been accomplished, what we need to work on. We can tag each other and communicate in there. And then in the end, they have this podcast that is effortlessly being published. I always say I erase the headache between recording and publishing. And it's published now. And I recently had a lady go, I cannot believe how easy that you just made that. And I was like, oh, good. I love that is the feeling that they feel when they're done working with me. And then, of course, we can do more if they want to do promotion of the podcast. But that's where they're going to see growth because they no longer have to spend that time editing, putting all the pieces together, publishing, all that. Now they have time to spend on social media, or they have time to spend on networking, or if they want to hand that off to me too, but then that's where they get to see growth with their podcast and growth with their business. And they get a little bit of life back, you know? You got all these things vying for your attention. It's so great when you can say, okay, you can take care of that piece so that I have more space in my brain.
I love it. Okay, so I'm going to throw you a curveball. Do you have a deep thought we can end off the podcast with? Do you want one you can share with us?
Oh, okay. This is one that I don't think I've published it yet, but I was thinking about the land of Florida, right? Or the state of Florida. And we have all these people coming here every month or every day. It's literally like 1,000 people a day. It's something crazy like that. And I'm like, gosh. So then we have to build like all these houses and, you know, all these pipe systems and everything. And I'm like, okay, Florida is staying afloat the way it is. But when we bring in all these people and all this cement to make these apartment buildings and all the intricate water systems for clean water for these people, and I am just like, how does Florida stay afloat when we keep adding these people and adding these structures?
That's
So
yeah.
So it's a deep thought by Tiffany Mason. These are the kind of things, you know, quandaries that I ponder over.
There's going to be people in Florida right now going outside to check their yard.
So,
yeah, that's a good one. Wow. Okay.
right? Like how much cement and trucks and vehicles and kids and toys and houses can Florida support?
There's got to be a maximum weight limit, right? Something.
You got to think there is.
Tiffany, I love it. That's great. See, that's a great way to end this. I love this. So you're going to come back. We're going to have you back. We're going to talk more podcasting, more stuff. You're a great co-host, by the way. So open door, come back anytime, anytime. I'd love to have you back.
Perfect. I love that. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been an easy conversation for sure. And I've learned, I mean, I hope that our audience took notes because I took notes.
It's exciting, right? I love kind of going back and forth, learning from each other. And like same thing. I have notes from you as well. So I have lots of stuff to work on. So thanks for the homework, by the way.
Yeah, thanks for the homework. Thanks a lot, Dave.
On.
Now I got homework.
Come on. It's your Canadian, Floridian connection here on the How to Podcast series. Thank you so much, Tiffany. It's great to have you here.
Likewise. Thanks so much, David.